I want you to picture something. It's 2:09 in the morning. You're lying flat on a cold linoleum floor, underneath a break room table, in the dark, and you are not moving. You are not breathing more than you absolutely have to, and there is someone on the other side of that door who does not know you are in there, and you need it to stay that way. That's where I was 8 months ago. And I'm only talking about it now because I stopped having the nightmare about it, mostly, and because I think someone needs to hear this before they take a job like the one I had. Let me explain how I got there. I was working overnight security at a mid-sized logistics warehouse on the edge of town, the kind of place that stores refrigerator parts and bathroom fixtures in enormous labeled rows. Not exciting. The whole appeal of the job, honestly, was that nothing ever happened. You walked the floor every 2 hours, you checked the loading dock cameras, you signed the log sheet, and you sat in the break room, watching whatever was on your phone until it was time to do it again. I'd been doing it for about 4 months by then. Tuesday and Wednesday nights, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. My coworker, a guy named Dominic, covered Thursday through Saturday. Sunday and Monday the place ran a reduced day shift, so nobody was there overnight at all. The building was big enough that they technically should have had 2 overnight guys, but the contract had lapsed and management was dragging their feet on renewing it, so for the time being it was just me, alone, in about 40,000 square feet of shelving and concrete. I didn't mind it. I had my route memorized. I knew which overhead fluorescents flickered, which loading door rattled, when wind came from the east, which corner of row 14 smelled like standing water, no matter how many times facilities said they'd fixed it. I knew the building the way you know a house you've lived in for years. You stop seeing it. That's probably the part that mattered. 11:47 p.m. 3 weeks before the first time I noticed something was off, I wrote it off completely. I was doing my second walkthrough of the night and I passed the east loading dock. There are 3 of them, side by side, big rolling steel doors with a manual lock bar across each one. The middle one was unlocked. Not open, just unlocked. The bar was still across it, but the padlock was hanging open on the hasp. My first thought was that the afternoon crew had forgotten to lock it properly when they left. This had happened before. I snapped it shut, logged it, and didn't think about it again for about a week. 2 nights later then I found a water bottle. This sounds like nothing. It is nothing, right? A half-empty plastic water bottle sitting on the floor at the end of row 7. Except here's the thing. I had walked that exact row about 3 hours earlier and it wasn't there. And nobody had been in the building since the day shift ended at 5 p.m. I checked the camera log. Nothing. No motion alerts, no door triggers. I just put it in the bin and told myself I'd missed it on my earlier pass. I don't really know why I believe that. I was so sure I knew this building that I'd rather call myself careless than admit the alternative. 1:22 a.m. The night. I was about halfway through my 1 a.m. walkthrough when my flashlight caught something at the far end of the main floor. A shape, low to the ground, near the base of the emergency exit on the south wall. I stopped, and I stood there for probably 30 full seconds just staring at it, because the south exit door was supposed to be alarmed, and it wasn't alarmed. It was just open, maybe 3 inches, letting in a thin line of cold air from outside. Someone had taped over the alarm contact. Not recently, the tape had dust on it. This had been done a while ago. I pulled out my radio to call it in, and then I heard it. Not a crash, not a dramatic bang, just a sound. A soft, deliberate sound, like a sneaker sole on concrete, coming from somewhere in the rows to my left. And the thing about this building at 1 a.m. is that sounds carry. There are no soft surfaces. Everything echoes a little. That sound was real, and it was close, and it was moving. I did not call out. I want to be really clear about this. I almost did. I almost said hello, like a person in a horror movie, and some last functioning part of my brain stopped me, because whoever was in there had hidden themselves from the cameras, had taped over an alarm, had been there probably for weeks. That person was not lost. That person did not want to be found, so I didn't run. I walked, fast, quiet, no flashlight, to the break room, which was the only interior room in the building with a lock on the door. I got inside, I locked it, and then I got down on the floor because I didn't trust the door and I didn't trust the frosted glass panel beside it, and I got as far under the table as I could get. Back to 2:09 a.m. So, there I am. Cold floor, dark room. My phone is face down in my hand and I have already, silently, texted 911 because I was too scared to make a voice call. I could hear movement outside in the main warehouse. Not frantic, not rushed. Slow, methodical. Like someone who had nowhere to be. At 2:17 a.m. the break room door handle moved. Just once. A single slow turn, and then it stopped because it was locked, and then there was nothing. No knock, no voice, no second attempt. Just that one slow turn and then silence. And I want you to understand how much worse that is than if they'd tried to force it, because forcing it would mean panic. That single slow turn meant patience. It meant they were comfortable. It meant they'd done this before. Police arrived at 2:52 a.m. They cleared the building. They found a sleeping bag and a duffel bag of food and a phone charger plugged into an outlet behind the shelving in row 11. Whoever it was had been living in that warehouse. I still don't know for how long. And they were gone by the time the officers got there. The south exit was open again. They never caught them. The detective I spoke to said it was likely someone who had previously worked there or knew someone who did. That's all they ever told me. Aftermath, he quit the next morning. I handed in my badge before the day shift arrived, and I drove home and I sat in my car in my own driveway for about 20 minutes before I could make myself go inside. My apartment felt different for a while after. I kept checking corners. I left lights on. I still can't hear a door handle move without my whole body going tight. The thing I think about the most, more than the door handle, more than the sleeping bag, is the water bottle. That was weeks earlier. I found evidence that someone was in there weeks before it escalated to a door handle, turning at 2 in the morning, and I talked myself out of it. I handed myself a reason to not see what was right in front of me because seeing it would have been inconvenient. Trust the water bottle. Whatever your version of the water bottle is, the thing that's slightly off, the thing you almost mentioned and then didn't, trust it. Log it. Tell someone. Leave if you have to. Just don't be lying on a break room floor at 2 in the morning wishing you had.
So I want to start by saying, I almost didn't stop. And that's the part that still gets me. Not the thing itself. Not what I saw. It's that I was this close to just turning up the music, keeping my hands on the wheel, and telling myself I was tired and imagining things. I think about that version of the night a lot. Okay, let me back up. This was about 8 months ago, maybe 9. It was a Tuesday, which matters because nothing scary happens on a Tuesday in your head, right? Tuesdays are for forgetting to eat lunch and replying to emails. Not for whatever this was. I was driving back from my cousin's place out in Darawar, or near it, not exactly there, but one of those roads that cuts through nothing for about 40-something kilometers before you hit anything resembling a town. I'd made this drive maybe a dozen times before. I knew it. Flat, straight, a few dry riverbeds, one broken signal nobody ever fixed. I left late, later than I meant to. It was around 11:20 p.m. when I got in the car, which I already wasn't thrilled about. But I had work the next morning and I kept thinking, it's a straight road, it's fine. You've done this before. The drive starts normal. I had a half-eaten bag of those orange biscuits on the passenger seat. I was listening to some old playlist I hadn't touched in years. I was tired in that specific way where you're not dangerously tired, just soft around the edges. You know what I mean. Where everything feels a little muffled. Around the 23-kilometer mark, I know because there's a faded yellow distance marker on the left side. I used to count them as a kid. I notice headlights behind me, and I think nothing of it. Okay, so here's where I need to be honest about how my brain was working that night, because this is the part I'm embarrassed about. The headlights were close. Too close for an empty highway at midnight. Like, I could see the shape of what looked like a truck in my rear view, and it was sitting maybe 30 meters behind me, which on an open road with no one else around is just... There's no reason for that. There's nothing stopping you from passing. The road is empty in both directions as far as you can see. But my brain goes, maybe they're just nervous drivers, because that's a thing, right? Some people don't like overtaking at night. I literally talked myself into that. I turned the music down, watched the mirror for about 40 seconds, and then I turned the music back up. Then around the 31-kilometer mark, the headlights went off. Just off. The truck, or whatever it was, went completely dark behind me, and I actually said out loud to nobody, their lights probably just shorted out. That one is hard for me to say, because I knew, somewhere underneath all the rationalizing, that that was not a normal thing. Cars don't just turn their lights off on a highway in the middle of the night. But I was tired, and the biscuits were there, and I had exactly 17 more kilometers before I hit the main road, and I kept driving. 3 or 4 minutes pass. I'm not seeing the headlights anymore, not in my mirror. And I'm starting to relax, starting to think, okay, maybe they turned off somewhere. There might be a dirt track around there. Farmers use those roads, whatever. And then I feel it. Not here. Feel a kind of low vibration in my seat, which on a smooth road means one thing. Something very large and very close is running without lights, right behind me. I looked in my mirror and I couldn't see anything. Just dark. But the vibration was real. My brain tried one more time. Uneven road surface. That was the excuse it handed me, and I remember almost accepting it. But then I looked again, and I could just barely make out. Not lights, no, a silhouette. Big. Dark. Coasting maybe 15 meters behind me with everything off. I don't fully remember deciding to do what I did next. It wasn't strategic. I wasn't thinking clearly at all. I floored it. Full acceleration. And I yanked my phone off the mount and called my older brother, who I knew would be awake, and I just said, "Stay on the phone with me, something is wrong." He did. He didn't ask questions, he just started talking, telling me to keep driving. Don't stop, don't slow down, just get to the main road. And that's what I did. I drove that last 12 kilometers faster than I probably should have, with my brother talking in my ear. And when I finally hit the junction with the streetlight and the petrol station with the fluorescent sign, I pulled in and just sat there. I watched the road for a few minutes. Nothing came out of it. I don't know what that was behind me. I've talked to people who know those roads, and there are stories about vehicles that follow, that wait for you to break down, that watch for anyone alone and slow. Whether it was someone who does that deliberately, who cuts their lights and trails you looking for an opportunity, or whether it was something with a simpler and even more disturbing explanation. I genuinely don't know. What I know is that I tried to talk myself out of being scared 4 separate times. I handed myself 4 different excuses, and I almost accepted every single one. The thing that sits with me isn't the fear from that night. It's the version of me that stays in the soft, muffled tiredness, reaches for another biscuit, and keeps the music up. That version of me doesn't call anyone. That version of me slows down. Don't drive that road alone at night. And if something feels wrong, I don't care how tired you are. I don't care how reasonable the excuse sounds. Call someone. Just call someone.
I'm going to tell you about a Saturday that was so boring, so completely unremarkable, that I almost didn't think it was worth telling anyone, and that's exactly why it still bothers me. I'd moved into the apartment about 6 weeks before this happened. 3rd floor, older building, one of those places with thick walls and small windows and a lift that worked maybe 60% of the time. I'd moved there for the rent, honestly. It was cheaper than anything else in that area, and it was mine. No flatmates, no landlord wandering through, just me in a half-unpacked kitchen, and a beagle named Ferris who had strong opinions about where he slept. The Saturday in question was the 14th. I remember because I'd paid rent the day before, and there's always this weird flat feeling the day after rent, like the month just got heavier. I woke up at 8:52 a.m., not an alarm. Just Ferris sitting next to my head making the quiet snorting sound he makes when he's decided I've slept long enough. I fed him. I made tea. I stood at the kitchen window in yesterday's socks and watched a pigeon sit on the opposite building's AC unit for an unreasonable amount of time. That was my morning. By 11, I'd done exactly 2 productive things. Moved a pile of laundry from the floor to the chair, and replied to one message I'd been avoiding for 4 days. I ate leftover rice standing at the counter because I hadn't bought a proper dining table yet, just a plastic fold-out one that wobbled, and it felt like too much effort. Ferris had his late morning sleep on the couch. I watched maybe 40 minutes of something I don't even remember, then switched it off and just sat there. Around 1:30 p.m., I decided to actually do something with the day. Not something ambitious. I walked to the small grocery about 8 minutes from the building, bought milk, bread, those individually wrapped cheese slices I know are terrible, and a mango because it was there. Walked back. Put everything away. That was my afternoon. I heated water for another tea at around 3. Noticed the kitchen tap had developed a slight drip. Not urgent, just the kind of thing you make a mental note about and then forget for 3 weeks. I forgot about it in approximately 90 seconds. Ferris woke up around 4, demanded a walk, and we did 1 loop of the street outside. He stopped to investigate the same patch of ground he investigates every single time, as if expecting new information. We were back inside by 4:34. I know that time because I checked my phone when we got in. No particular reason, just the automatic reflex of checking. By 8 p.m. I'd eaten dinner, eggs, because I hadn't felt like cooking anything real, and was sitting on the floor with my back against the couch because the cushions were too soft, and my back had been slightly off all week. Ferris was next to me. I was watching something properly this time, actually paying attention. This is where I need to describe the apartment layout, because it matters. The front door opened into a small entryway, maybe 1.5 meters of space, with a shoe rack on one side. From there, you walked directly into the main room, living area, and kitchen open plan. The single bedroom was off to the left, through a door I usually kept halfway open. The bathroom was at the end of a tiny hallway next to the bedroom. 1 window in the main room, 1 in the bedroom, 1 small frosted one in the bathroom. The building had a main entrance downstairs with a keypad. You needed the code to get in, or a resident had to buzz you up. I'd been careful about that. Actually, I'd had a thing at a previous place where someone had propped the main door open constantly, and it bothered me, so I was aware of it. It felt secure. At 9:47 p.m., Ferris lifted his head. He did it the specific way he does when he hears something I can't. Slow, deliberate, nose slightly forward. Not aggressive, just alert. I looked at him, looked at the room, heard nothing, and looked back at the screen. I remember thinking, pigeon on the windowsill, probably. At 10:03 p.m. he did it again. This time he stood up. And here's the thing about Ferris. He's not a particularly reactive dog. He doesn't bark at every sound. He's actually quite calm for a beagle, which anyone who knows the breed will tell you is not a given. So when he stood up and stayed standing, just staring at the front door, I muted the TV. I heard nothing. Completely quiet hallway. I sat there for maybe a full minute watching him, and then he slowly lay back down. I told myself, probably someone in the building coming home late. Sound carries weird in old buildings. I unmuted the TV at 11:19 p.m. I was getting ready for bed. Ferris was already in the bedroom. I was in the bathroom, brushing my teeth, and I heard, very clearly, not imagined, not the building settling, a sound from directly outside my front door. Not a knock, not a voice. It was the specific sound of weight shifting, like someone adjusting how they were standing. I stood completely still with the toothbrush in my mouth. Then I heard it again, slower this time. Someone was standing just outside my door, not knocking, not leaving, just standing there. I don't know how long I stayed frozen in that bathroom. My brain was doing something I can only describe as buffering, just refusing to produce a clear thought. I finally rinsed, turned the bathroom light off, and stood in the dark hallway for a second. Then I did the only thing that made any sense to me in that moment. I went to the bedroom, quietly picked up my phone, and called my friend Nadia, who lived 12 minutes away. I typed to her first, "Don't call me back, just text," and then I typed what was happening. She told me to not open the door, to call the building's night guard if there was one. There was, an older man who sat at a desk near the back entrance. I called him from the bedroom with the door closed and Ferris pressed against my legs. He went to check the third-floor hallway. He found a man sitting on the floor next to my door. Not a resident. No explanation for how he'd gotten past the main entrance. He was asked to leave, and he left without much argument, which in some ways is almost more disturbing than if he'd made a scene. The guard didn't seem to think it was a serious incident. He called it a drunk who'd wandered in. Maybe. I don't know. I called a locksmith the following Monday and had a second lock fitted. I bought a door alarm that beeps if the handle is tested from outside. I stopped propping the building entrance open even for 30 seconds when I was bringing groceries in. I take the stairs now instead of the lift so I can see the hallway before I step into it. None of that felt dramatic at the time. It just felt like things I should have already done. Ferris got an extra walk that Sunday. He'd earned it. There was no resolution, no explanation. The building management sent a message reminding residents not to share the entrance code. That was it. I still live there. I still eat eggs when I can't be bothered cooking. The kitchen tap still drips occasionally, and I still mean to get it fixed. But I don't sit with my back to the door anymore, and I never ignore it when Ferris stands up.